Hi everyone, today is May 16th, 2020, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is Green Ranger. We've got a huge week in Duel Links, and that culminates into a really big episode here. A lot of announcements here. We've got some of the esports going on, and it happens before and after the nerfs, and of course, that leads into the nerfs. Long-awaited Duel Skill rebalance, as well as card limit forbidden list updates. So we'll talk about all that. The first announcement of the KC Grand Tournament. The event finally has a name. It's actually going to happen. This is, of course, the thing that is replacing WCS for this year that's canceled because of COVID. We'll talk about the text is a bit confusing, but I was able to parse it out, I think. Also this week, we have Blair Flannigan's new cards, 2 new cards from her, new card from Duel Quest, and then we're going to end the episode with 3 decks. The L Games is having a feature here. I'm going to be talking about the L Games' deck, but there's a link to his YouTube video as well. Doug's Casual Deck of the Week with Dino Lightsworns. And my own deck. I hit King of Games early, so I'm going to talk about Synchro Toolbox. Yeah, I hit my earliest King of Games ever, really, and I was able to get over, I think I got it on May 10th, or 11th, I forget, early in this week, and I'll talk about the deck a little bit later at the end of the episode, but what it is Synchro Toolbox, and I played a lot of games, and that's just a little bit of net decking. I'll talk about the context of it a little later. Let's start off with Esports today. Duel Links Meta Championship Series number 30. This happened before the nerfs, so kind of the lead in. I'm not sure if Konami specifically waited. We know that Konami had to wait and delay things because of COVID, but this here happened before, and that may have informed some of their decision making on what to nerf or refine it somewhat. Looking at the top 32, Black Wings, Thunder Dragons, Cristrons. Everyone here got hit except for Black Wings. Yeah. First place, Grucius, No Mortal Can Resist, Ritual Beasts. Ritual Beasts typically do the same thing with their monsters. They make a lot of moves in a turn for some kind of one-turn kill thing. So they don't have too much room for tech cards. I'd say Karibo's pretty much a core card in the deck. You see it all the time. This deck does have room for 2 Herald of the Abyss and 2 Needle Sealings. Needle Sealing, I'm not sure if they're praying for DDD, but some of the other decks, like Masked Heroes, swarm pretty well as well. So I could see it being used there. And Herald of the Abyss, of course, you lose 1500 for some non-target removal. And that works pretty good with No Mortal Can Resist being the skill here. Yeah. Second place, Yoshifumi, No Mortal Can Resist, Masked Heroes. This is pretty much the refined list for Masked Heroes. 1 Plasma, 3 Ferris, 3 Stratus, 2 Malicious, 2 Increase, 2 Vion, 2 Cosmic Cyclone, 3 Mass Change, 1 Polymerization, 1 Treacherous, 1 Artifact Lancia. So it comes in at 21 cards. That kind of looks the same after the nerfs. There's a slight change here. Semi-limit on a card. But we did see, Malicious and Plasma get removed for a little bit. They were. I don't really know what the reason was. I think it was they're trying to do some kind of Hey True Nade thing, so it was a faster deck and you didn't really need Plasma, but this is pretty much what the deck will look like after the nerfs. Top 4, Wayne Kenoff, Transcendent Crystals, Cristrons. This is a pretty pure 30 card Crystron deck. We've seen a lot of variation, water deck, Cristrons and whatnot. It's hard to say whether this version would still exist after the nerfs because of the skill, but this is pretty much a Crystron deck with 2 techs in Artifact Lancea and Forbidden Lance. And top 4, Bobby, No Mortal Can Resist, Masked Heroes. This is the form change version of Masked Hero. Hard to say whether this is going to be more important later down on the line because of the nerfs, but no plasma in this deck. Seems to be a conditional thing whether to include plasma. Plasma is in the sideboard though. Artifact Lancea as well. Now the weekly tournaments, Duel Links Meta Weekly number 124. At this point, the nerfs they're not live, but they simulate live nerfs. So, all those cards are limited or semi-limited. Skills probably can't be used at this point, the ones that were hit. So this is a bit of a diluted, if you will, tournament list. The next 2 tournament lists are a bit diluted. I assume they can't use those skills that have been hit. First place, Sacred Master of Fusion Hero deck. So they're doing away with Vion, 1 Treacherous, and to make up for the lack of fusion, they use Master of Fusion, lose 1,000, and then you could tutor polymerization from outside your deck. So they run 3 Cosmic Cyclone for that purpose. Form change also in this deck, otherwise pretty similar deck. Second place, V Bellafior, Alternative Evolution Blue Eyes. I've seen this deck on the ladder actually in King of Games, and Cosmo Brain is a dark attribute, and Seer Karibo is good no matter where it goes, so they found their home for Chaos Dragon Levianeer with all the light monsters that are around as well. Melody of the Awakening Dragon has great synergy with that card as well, as well as Blue Eyes, so there it is. Top 4, Psycho P, Beatdown, Dark Magician, Beatdown's back. Really, it works for Dark Magician because Magician Navigation gets 2 monsters on the board, and that will put Dark Magician at 3,100, which is over the 3,000 cutoff point. Otherwise, there's a 1-1 split on Magician of Dark Illusion and Treacherous Trap Hole. No World Legacy Clash for now. Treacherous Trap Hole works great in Dark Magician because Magician Navigation gets itself out of the graveyard, and then it won't be an extra trap card to negate that card. And top 4, Metal Overdrive, Heavy Starter Crystrons. New Crystron deck here to compensate for the nerfs. Heavy Starter is also going to get changed, but we don't know how. So yeah, I don't know if it was legal to be used here, but they needed 3 level 5 or higher monsters. Crystrons typically just run Sulfifnir, so they put in Mermail, Abystius, and also the Tricky. Both of these cards have one thing in common: they discard a card to special summon. And that's really what you're doing with Transcendent Crystals Crystrons. You're discarding cards on purpose. You're discarding your Crystron cards. And this achieves the same goal, really. I guess it's just they want to start off with one of those cards. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, that's the whole goal here. So it's pretty much the same. It's cool. It's cool that a lot of water monsters also have discard synergy. They like to throw cards into the graveyard, so there it is. 2 Ryan as well. Semi-limit list. Finally, Duel Links Taiwan, Weekly 101. Anthox, first place, Destiny Draw, Invoked Element Sabers, 24 cards. With the nerf, Nalu comes in. It's kind of hard to talk about these without talking about the nerfs, but I'm skating around it. Unending Nightmares in the deck. I think this could be just because the deck is running Destiny Draw. They want to lose 2,000 life points and clear some back row. You could do that with Unending Nightmare. Has to be face-up cards, though, so that's a little different. Debunks in the side deck that might clue you into what's going on, and a lot of hand traps. Second place, Ankara, level augmentation, Shiranui. No Cosmic Cyclones, Gold Sarcophagus with Squire. And you need 3 Ballista Squads. I think this is something that's going to happen. To play the best Shiranui deck, you're going to need as many Ballista Squads as possible because removal has been limited. Top 4, Blast, Shadow Game, Stromberg. Really no change to the deck. The deck has a core, and then they just throw in deck cards and the best trap cards at the same time. Yeah. Psychic Wheel Dealer is probably the hardest card to get for this deck. Like a core card. And top 4, Bad Kid Chow, Level Og, Shiranui. Yep, Shiranui looks pretty good after the nerfs. Still, Gozuki's pretty much a core card in the deck now. Ballista Squad as well. Yeah, that card just shows up everywhere. This guy only has 2 Ballista Squads. You could kind of put in things like Forbidden Lance, kind of make up for it as another good card. Void Trap Holes, things like that. Meta attacks. Alright, so they updated the tier list to predict what's going on with the nerfs. Tier 1, we have Black Wings and Cristrons. Black Wings are here just because they weren't touched by the nerfs. I think that's the main thing. Pretty strong deck. They were hampered by the meta with everything else falling. They moved them up to Tier 1. Cristrons seem to be fine, despite the nerfs. Tier 2, Dark Magician, Element Sabers, Masked Hero, and Shiranui. They demoted Shiranui, with the nerf going on. I don't think it'll affect them too much, but their removal options are definitely more limited now, and they don't get to use, they use Level Og. They don't really care about No Mortal Can Resist, I guess. Tier 3, we have Blue Eyes, Cyber Dragon, and Ritual Beasts. Blue Eyes are back again. I think the Chaos version of Blue Eyes is a new thing, and that's pretty strong. Yeah. And off the tier list, we have Triple Ds and Thunder Dragons. We'll get to why Thunder Dragons are nerfed. Probably got hit the hardest out of everyone, which is kind of a surprise. They were never really the most annoying deck. Sometimes you nerf someone because they're annoying. Sometimes you nerf them when they're good. I guess they were just super good. Triple D's never really made an impact on tournament scene, though you could probably hit King of Games with them. They are not here yet. They probably have to wait for new cards. I'm not really sure what's going on there. I never played them. Alright, so let's talk about the tournament. KC Grand Tournament. Earlier when they canceled Worlds, there was talk about an online tournament substituting in its place. Not really, you're not going to get the same accolade as a WCS 2020 championship, but it's a substitute tournament. So basically, there's multiple phases here. There's a preliminary tournament that starts in June, so it's 2 weeks away from happening. 2 weeks and a day. And this first stage of the preliminary tournament is June 1st to 15th. PvP duels to reach DLV max. So this is kind of like Kaiba Cup. You play, I don't know how many levels. Kaiba Cup's 20 levels. They'll just say DL max. Qualifiers happen from June 12th to 15th. Similar thing with Kaiba Cup Stage 2, where there's 3 days where you could play. You can move on to there. And you play PvP duels to gain DP, and then the top 100 DP will be invited to the main tournament. And note that this May 2020 season will count towards progression in the first stage. So I already hit King of Games, so I start off at DL 12. So that's the first part of it. That's what most of us will be doing, the first stage. And then the top 100 in the world will get the qualifiers. So that's where I get cut off because I'm a top 10,000 player, but I'm not a top 100 player. There's a difference there. Now, the main tournament will happen in August, so there's like a 2-month layoff there. And the participants from the main tournament are the top 100 from that preliminary tournament in June. First place winners of KC Cup September 2019, first place winner of KC Cup November 2019, first place winner of KC Cup February 2020, and first place winner of KC Cup April 2020. And the 2019 WCS champion will also be invited. So all of those people are invited. So really, getting a top 100 in the prelims is pretty much the same as the other ones. I feel like those guys are going to get buys. Like the WCS champion is going to face the least number of players. That's only fair because getting a top 100 in the preliminary is not the same as the other accolades. The first place in the KC Cups are probably they're better, and the WCS champion's the best. So it only makes sense to stagger. And then after they all go, there's a first stage, duels to determine the top 16. So out of everyone there, they determine the top 16. Like I said, you probably need a tiering system to make sure the WCS champion has the highest tier and not make him equal. And then the championship's the top 16, yeah. So that's the gist of KC Grand Tournament. We've all been waiting for the nerfs in Duel Links, and it's been about a month since the last Kaiba Cup went on. So, with the situation in the world the way it is, we expected some delays in this regard. But thank you, Konami, for finally giving the nerfs. I guess it happened after the MCS happened, so it makes sense to look at some of the top decks playing there and to adjust accordingly. Now, unlike previous skill rebalancing or limitless things, they usually stagger them within a week. So, usually skills get rebalanced and then the cards do. This one, they both seem to fall around the same time, which makes a lot more sense to me. It seems to have a weird meta where when one of it's nerfed and one of it isn't, it makes this kind of fake meta. But right now, everything is planned for May 21st. So skill rebalancing and also the limitless update. So, let's talk about it. Updated skills, grit. What they say is if you had 4,000 or more life points at the start of the turn, your life points will not fall below 0. Works one time only. When this skill is applied, you can only special summon one monster until the end of your next turn. The skill will only activate once per duel. So from what I could tell, there are 3 different changes coming to grit. First off, it has an automatic activation condition whenever you have 4,000 or more, which is max life points. I feel like the skill was never 100% automatic. It was very close to 100 when you got OTK'd, but now it seems they're saying that it will be guaranteed. It was always hidden behind some weird, non-transparent number, but now apparently it's 100% against those first turn kills. The second is now even getting in a little bit of damage will negate grit from activating for the rest of the duel. So, let's say you sneak in 100 damage, it's not going to activate anymore because you had below 4,000. Now, I don't know if, let's say you're playing Aramages, you fall below, then you get back over 4,000. I'm not really sure how that works, but it seems like it loses its skill once you lose a little bit of life points. The third is that this is the biggest takeaway. If it does activate, you can only do one special summon per turn, and this really kills Grit and what it was for. Grit was played a lot in Luna Lights specifically, and they did some busted OTK where you have to get the cat dancer out and sacrifice a monster to end your opponent. Now the Yellow Martin came from the graveyard, so that's already 2 special summons right there. So that can't really fly anymore at all. And this hurts Luna Lights a lot. They really needed Grit to stay competitive. Now you probably won't see them much anymore. But it's a little clunkier for them to do that one-turn kill. And overall, different decks, they weren't just exclusively Luna Lights. We saw them with Super Heavy Samurai quite a bit. And now that's a deck that just special summons a ton each turn as well. So, Grit was paired with those decks that special summon a lot. I mean, every deck now special summons multiple times a turn. So this will limit its usage in general quite a bit. I'm I'm not really sure what deck would use Grit anymore based on this, and maybe if there's a meta where there's some really, really busted first turn kill deck, and then Grit becomes there, but it doesn't seem it's worth it at all when you could just limit yourself to one special summon a turn. Next up is Baggy Sleeves. So they say if your level 7 or higher monster is destroyed by battle, your normal draw in the next draw phase becomes 2 cards. The skill will only activate once per duel. So, 2 changes here, 2 nerfs. First is 5 and 6, level 5 and 6 are gone. It's going to be 7 or higher. And worst of all, skill only activates 1 per duel. So, the whole point of Baggy Sleeves was just to generate card advantage throughout the whole duel. And I could see, it was busted in a hidden. It wasn't a very flashy way of being busted, but it was a little busted. And this hurts Thunder Dragons. That's the main skill they used. That was the main. That's really the only skill they used. I don't really see them using any other skill. I'm not sure what they can use anymore. A deck I played myself, Monarchs, are pretty much gone. Monarchs relied on the level 5 and the level 6. Monarchs coming out of the graveyard, getting destroyed repeatedly, 4 card advantage. And, the activating once per duel is the whole thing that kills it. So, there it goes. There's not really a point of it anymore. I don't see a point of getting like a +1, like a +2, +1 once. Because you might as well just run card advantage cards in your deck, right? Like, there's no point in doing that, really, like having a skill just for 1 card. There goes Baggy Sleeves. Now, here's the hit list, the number 1 target everyone's been waiting for. No mortal can resist. Can be used when your life points are at least 2,000 less than your opponent. Change all your opponent's graveyard monsters to Skull Servants. The skill can only be used once per duel. So 2 big changes. Life point difference has to be 2,000 or less, as well as only 1 activation per duel. So, everyone knew this was coming. It was just when. And, you could tell when something's busted when any archetype can just use it. And that's what was going on. Any deck that just needed a skill, they splashed in No Mortal Can Resist. In the meta we're in, any graveyard effect is super strong. This is the number 1 counter to your graveyards. Turn them all into Skull Servants. So, first hit from 1,000 to 2,000. Cosmic Cyclone obviously has less utility now for this skill. And even a card, Herald of the Abyss, very popular card, to lose life points is only 1,500. So you'll need like a mirror wall, keeping a mirror wall on the board, a Pointer of the Red Lotus, something to lose 2,000. This skill could still devastate a graveyard, since you do have mirror walls and a pointers to lose 2,000. A lot of other cards do too. Let's say you could play, Cyber Dragons have the that quick play that loses 2,000. And your opponent could mill a lot of cards. They're playing Lightsworns, they mill a ton of cards. You could still hit them pretty hard. You could still win a game against Lightsworns. But it seems like it's a little situational now that you have to lose 2,000 and they have to have a lot of stuff in their graveyard. Overall, this is great for the game because there previously probably were cards that just never had an impact, or there was no point in playing and releasing those cards at all when No Mortal Can Resist was just running rampant. So, huge boon to any graveyard strategies in the game, and it allows more cards to be put into Duel Links. This is something that was definitely needed, given the amount of decks that did just run No Mortal Can Resist. I'm really happy about it. We needed it. Transcendent Crystals can be used from turn 3 onwards by sending 1 to 3 cards from your hand. Alright, otherwise it's the same. Um, it just gets delayed a turn. This is like the first nerf to Cristrons. There's another one later, but this is the skill nerf. It's slowed down by one turn, and it seems like you can compensate by adding some stall or control, but the big deck sizes of Cristrons, they run like 30 cards, like 26 to 30 cards. It works against those cards being drawn reliably, so really it hurts more than it looks. And I think, yeah, as we saw in the esports, decks, Cristrons are turning to other skills, relying on monsters to dispose of the cards that the skill previously provided. So, maybe they could try by adding those stall cards, or maybe they could just, find like those monsters, finding some other way to dispose of their monsters, or just putting in the tech of the week or the month against the meta. So, Cristrons aren't dead. They're adapting, but they probably, I can't say this kills the skill, it just slows them down one turn. Maybe it's possible their deck sizes get smaller, but that's highly unlikely given what the decks look like. Yeah, I don't see it, but they can use other skills as shown by the esports. Heavy starter. So heavy starter's text remains the same, but they have their probability reduced. So you need to run those 3 level 5 or highers, and your chances go up. All we know is the skill's probability is lower. This is super vague. We never knew what the percentages were. It was less than grit. I could tell you that much. This skill is probably along the lines of spell specialist in terms of consistency, and yeah, grit was nerfed a similar way before this new nerf. They said it will activate less reliably, but then it seemed to happen every single time too. So very unclear. This is like people are gonna have to get burned in. Well, you don't want to get burned in a tournament, but test with your friends or play people on ranked. See how often your heavy starter goes. If it still seems worth it, it might be worth it. If it's not, it's not. Fusion time. Can be used when your life points decrease by 1,000. Return 1 card from your hand to the deck. Add polymerization from outside the deck. Then add a level 4 or lower elemental hero monster, normal monster from your hand to the graveyard. Once per duel. So the change here is that it's from 1,500 life points to 1,000, but only once per duel. Again, this skill is a little different because it relies on those level 4 or lower elemental heroes, which aren't really played. The only really played elemental hero monster that's normal is Neos, and Neos works with Neos Fusion, obviously. This is Burstinatrix, Sparkman, Avian, Clayman, Bubbleman is an effect. Anyways, those cards, and they're more like Omni cards, so like Nova Master, Gaia. I don't remember the rest. Well, they're not that good, but Great Tornado's okay, I think. That's the one that saw some play. But overall, not a great skill in general, you have to run those cards in your deck. And heroes are primarily masked heroes now, but we see Stratus could be used in those decks, but this forces you to play a inferior archetype, though losing 1,000 is a draw. It is a boon to many dual skills that just work with Cosmic Cyclone, so there's a chance we may see a more diverse hero deck rather than just the masked hero deck that we see. Finally, deck master effect Cyber Commander. If you have Cyber Commander in your field, the attack and defense of warriors and machines you control increases by 300. In addition, instead of conducting your normal draw, you can add Cyber Commander from your hand to your deck. So the Cyber Commander thing always worked with the warriors and the machines, but now you get a Draw Sense edition, so yeah, all you get is a Draw Sense. So The only way this is relevant in any way is buffing Desperado Barrel Dragon. It's a 2800 attacker. Becomes 3100. We see how important that is sometimes to get over the 3000 hump. Hit over Blue Eyes primarily. And this 2800 to 3100 is significant. I feel like those coin flipping decks can. No, that's the problem though. If you're running Desperado Barrel Dragon, you're running Sartorius, and you can't run Tristan, so it kind of hurts it, and this skill remains probably irrelevant. So those are the dual skill changes. Let's move on to the Forbidden and Limited list update. 10 new cards are added to this list. Nothing removed. Sometimes we do see an older archetype lose a card. Now they're being added on completely, so it gets more crowded in the limited lists. Called Forbidden 1, the Synchro. I didn't even know this card existed. So they're citing this thing that it was used repeatedly to special summon Fortune Lady Water, and this made a card advantage nightmare, which is why Baggy Sleeves got nerfed, but apparently this was some busted combo. Fortune Ladies just draw cards just fine, but I assume this was some bamboo thing where if you ever played bamboo, that deck just drew everything in one turn. I assume there's something similar with Desynchro. Maybe you could use like Future Fortune, help you draw even more. Water, I mean, she just drew 2 every time she was special summoned, so this there was probably some busted combo there. I'm not against it because I didn't even know it existed. This card is from Power of Bravery, which I don't even know what that is. That's the Power Tool Dragon box, I think. I don't think I have any of those cards, but overall, yeah, sure. Now the next one is the one that I wanted the most. In addition to No Mortal Can Resist, I just raged against this. The day before I hit King of Games, I posted something at Konami where I just roped someone. And by roping someone, I mean I waited 200 seconds before I got a time limit loss. And I did this on purpose because I was trying to hit King of Games. I was at Legend 5. And then some dude comes in and locks out my board with Ojama. So I made him wait 200 seconds. It's the only fair thing to do. And I tagged Konami on Twitter. So next day, we get these nerfs, and I feel vindicated. So yeah, Cyberstein. About time. Nothing fun about getting your board locked up by Ojamas. I don't care about those 4,000 attack beaters. They could put as many of those on as they want. This was what was needed. I'm happy the most malignant deck in Duel Links will never see a light of day after this. That is all. Now here is the third addition to Forbidden 1, Element Saber Malo. And they say decks that use this card have a high win percentage over the course of many months. And they mean Element Saber invoked, obviously, but so, every Element Saber deck, it's safe to say this, every Element Saber deck just ran 1, and that's just what it was. Now it competes in the same slot as Coxodus, and you need to run Invoked Coxodus because it stalls you on the board and gets by certain decks. That's just what it does. Really high defense into attack. Very solid card. This hurts the opening hand consistency of Purgatrio. So, you have this in your hand, you play Alistair, and then you play Purgatrio. That's pretty standard play for Element Sabers, so this hurts them in that regard. Now, it's not like they don't have access to fire monsters. They can turn any of their monsters in the graveyard into the fire attribute, because that's what they do. So, right now this hurts them with that opening Coxodus is gone. I mean, the opening Purgatrio is gone. Now, what this does is it hurts the budget Element Sabers more. And by that I mean, let's say I'm playing Element Sabers, I only have 2 Malehus, so I can't play 3. Now you probably have to play 3 Malehus just because it's the best element saber, and you don't want to run too many bad ones. And Nalu, which is the water attribute, was one that saw play sometimes, so that naturally slots in. Aina, which is the earth attribute, probably slots in. We may even see the wind one. The wind one's kind of useless because she has no she has no synergy. She has no synergy with any of the invoked monsters. There's no invoked wind attribute monster yet. So what it is the wind monster probably won't see any play. But let's say you put in Nalu and Aina and 3 Malehus to... Oh, you're gonna put on Lapoya. Lapoya's light attribute, but his ability is pretty good. So you definitely want Lapoya to sub in. And Malu hits for 1700, which was decent for anyone who was not Malehu. So overall, this hurts a little bit. It hurts their consistency of getting Purgatrio whenever they want. They have to dump something in the graveyard and turn it into a fire type. And overall, this does weaken the field spell a little bit. To count how many monsters are each attribute, you lose your natural fire type, and that's what it is. So, Element Sabers lose a monster. You probably need... I think maybe you could get by 2 Malehu, 1 Lapoya, 1 Aina, and 1 Nalu. Maybe that's good enough. But you definitely want 3 Malehus. Move on to Forbidden 2. 3 monsters here. Magician of Dark Illusion. This is the only hit on Dark Magicians. They say this card will be limited to prevent Dark Magician decks from using other powerful cards in conjunction. And they mean semi-limited cards. This is probably the worst list to be on, is the semi-limit list. And yeah, I think the main target here may have been World Legacy Clash, because World Legacy Clash was gaining steam in Dark Magician, but we have seen Dark Magician get away from Magician of Dark Illusion. They don't always have to play it, so I don't see it as being a huge deal. Dark Magic Curtain is a free card from Arcana, so that card you could just play. And with Dark Magic Curtain, you lose 2,000 life points. You could use your Destiny Draw. You could use No Mortal Can Resist. No Mortal Can Resist Dark Magician could still be a thing because Dark Magic Curtain is being pushed with less Magician of Dark Illusion. So this really isn't a nerf in my opinion at all. You could still run your World Legacy Clash, your Tetris Trap Holes if you don't play this card. Or you could do a 1-1 split. I don't see that being a problem at all. I don't see it being... It's like a very little slap on the wrist. Next is Vision Hero Vion, who is back on the Forbidden list. This card will be limited to prevent hero decks from having access to 2 powerful limited 2 cards. So, back on... So, heroes were kind of like one-turn kills, so they liked Treacherous Trap Hole, Hey True Nate. Now you hit the consistency on Vion. That means less polymerization. We saw one of this tournament winners, they just ran a skill that tutors polymerization. So you still run your Cosmic Cyclones, you tutor your polymerization or Master of Fusion. So really no harm, no foul here either. But they prevent themselves from getting busted from having that double Trunade consistency. So yeah, with less access to polymerization, there's less of a reliance on those fusion monsters and more of a reliance on those mask change monsters. So form change and mask change are a little better. Last card to be added to Forbidden 2 is Crystron Ryan. And they also say decks that have this card have a high winning percentage. So this is Crystron's. We are limiting this card to prevent the metagame from being stale. So Ryan's on limited 2. That means Crystron's don't have access to Econ. That was primarily the card they used in the limit 2 slot. Really, they can't play Quan. Quan's a level 1, and it doesn't help getting Crystron, Quadri, and Gandrix onto the board. I think that's the biggest problem with Quan. They already run Citria, which is the SR. So Ryan was 3. uh, 3 plus 2 and a 4. They have a lot of 4s, so that was easy. Crystron Quadrant Gandrix right there. This limits their options, but they're still getting by, I think. But they just have to run Ryan. I don't see any other way. They're not just going to run Citri and Quan. That doesn't work for Quadrant Gandrix. So really, they have to stick running. They have to stick with Ryan. And finally, limited 3. This was only populated by Cosmic Cyclone now, so there's 4 new cards added to this. And this is where it hits the Thunder Dragons. Total devastation of Thunder Dragons here. So many cards they run, all put on the same list. It's magic. Thunder Dragon Dark. This will be limited along with Gold Sarcophagus to prevent Thunder Dragon decks from summoning many monsters in one turn. So, even those 2 cards, Charge of the Light Brigade too. That's a card they ran. They ran the Lightsworn engine pretty well. Those 2 cards are core: Thunder Dragon Dark and Gold Sarcophagus. Let me just do these together. This card will be limited with Thunder Dragon Dark to prevent Thunder Dragons from summoning many monsters. Okay, so I can't really explain it because I've never played Thunder Dragons, but if you look in Duel Links meta for the King of Games decks or tournament decks, every single deck ran 3 of each. So 3 Gold Sarcophagus, 3 Thunder Dragon Dark, that was core. Now without it, they're gone. I think they're off in tier list completely. I don't see it working well. You're going to have to think of something else. You're going to have to be innovative to get through this. Gold Sarcophagus, on the other hand, was played in other decks. It was more than just a core for Thunder Dragons. It was in Shiranui. It was in Metaphys. It probably still works in Shiranui, but it was a card in Metaphys. Shiranui can get away with Gozuki for now, I think. Gozuki became a core card for the deck. They run level augmentation. They don't really need Gold Sarcophagus anymore, but this is more of a hit on Thunder Dragons, like they said. Next card is Shiranui Squire. They say decks that use this card have a high percentage over the course of many months. We are limiting this card to prevent the metagame from being stale. So you're always going to run 3 Squire no matter what. It's the core opener of the deck. They can't really go without 3. So you definitely need that card. What this does is cuts out Cosmic Cyclone. Cosmic Cyclone is good for any deck, really. Especially in a normal can resist version. They just ran Cosmic Cyclone to lose the life points. Now, some decks got cute and they added in the Lightsworn package into Shiranui. Now that won't happen either. So you're totally relying on Shiranui Squire to do the work as an opener. That pretty much means they're staying at 20 cards. That's the way to go. And this is not a huge nerf, but you definitely need those better trap cards like Ballista Squad. 3 times Ballista Squad seems pretty, I wouldn't say core, but because I wouldn't advise buying 3 times mini box, but possible you need that to compete, to be the best, not compete, to be the best Shiranui deck. Run your best trap cards, but Ballista Squad was needed since they can't run Cosmic Cyclones. You need something to hit the back row every so often, besides the level 7 Synchro monsters. So, Squire still is going to be a 3. Now, Charge of the Light Brigade. This is get limited 3, as it is widely used in decks that utilize graveyard cards. So yeah, Charge of the Light Brigade, Lightsworn package. It's becoming its own deck, I want to say, but it's not. It is its own deck now. It's got off to a really slow start, and it more often is an engine. So this is a nerf to any deck that did run it. Thunder Dragon, Shiranui, any Lightsworn package. Pure Lightsworn decks are still going to run 3 because they never used Cosmic Cyclone to begin with, so that's good for them. Now, if they throw in some other card into 3, they're in trouble, but they're not good enough for that yet. So they're fine with this 3 Charge of the Light Brigade in a pure Lightsworn deck. Monarchs are dead with baggy sleeves, so they don't really carry either. So yeah, Chaos Lightsworn decks are going to be a thing now, especially with the new cards. So I never played Cosmic Cyclone, they don't care. So yeah, those are the nerfs coming to Duel Links in less than a week. Those are all the balance changes that are coming to the game. And now let's talk about Blair Flannigan. This is the second event where you get to acquire her. What to say? Two relevant cards. I think the cards that they're giving us for free for these events are getting better and better. And, with the nerfs to Thunder Dragons, this leaves in room for pure Lightsworns. And by pure Lightsworns, we're moving into the Twilight Sworns, which, with the addition of Chaos Dragon Levianeer in the game, the Twilight Sworns are better. You need to have some of those dark monsters in there, and with Thunder Dragons out, this gives more room for this deck to grow. So two pretty relevant cards, one more than the other. Let's talk about both. Lumina Twilight Sworn Shaman. Dark level 3 spellcaster. 1000. Once per turn, banish a Lightsworn from your hand or graveyard. Then target a banished Lightsworn monster except for Lumina. Twilight Sworn Shaman, special summon it. Once per turn, if your other Lightsworn monster's effect is activated, send the top 3 cards from your deck to the graveyard. Pretty much the same thing as regular Lumina, except it's banish instead of graveyard. So, really, this can keep Chaos Banish cards like Chaos Dragon Levianeer, Chaos Sorcerer, Dark Flare Dragon, Eclipse Wyvern. It makes all those cards better. Because all those effects can work in conjunction with each other. Especially a card like those cards would punch stuff into the graveyard. I guess, yeah, Chaos Sorcerer, those are all like summoning conditions for those cards. Eclipse Wyvern, you need to banish Eclipse Wyvern, so you could just also... Well, this is less good for Eclipse Wyvern, I guess, but... Not that it's less good for Eclipse Wyvern, but it keeps... Eclipse Wyvern will have something banished, so it lets you activate. But anyways, this is better than the regular Lumina, so I do expect to see some mix of both Luminas in, Chaos Lightsworn decks. This card does have a conflict, though, with non-Lightsworn graveyard synergy. Lightsworns previously ran cards like Glow Up Bulb, Plague Spreader Zombie, Bacon Saver, as cards you would just dump into the graveyard and they would have positive effects. This being a banish card, there is no use for those cards. So, while it doesn't mill anything on its own, it gets no benefit from cards being milled into the graveyard, only from banish. So, overall, this is a great addition to Lightsworns. Dark Monster, more flexibility in your Synchro play based on what you have in the graveyard and what's banished. And also, it's a spellcaster for Fortune Lady Every. You forget that sometimes. Fortune Lady Every comes back. You need to sacrifice one of your... you need to send one of your spellcasters from the graveyard to the banish. And that even helps this card even more. So, puts more stuff into the banish zone. So... Also, something that's underlooked. Blair Flannigan's level 35 card is Twilight Eraser. This gives you a counterpart for the other Lumina to activate Twilight Eraser, and that lets you banish 2 cards, which is it's a little situational card that's why I never really saw any play. But now you have a Dark Spellcaster and a Light Spellcaster, and then you could do it. So, yeah, Lumina is an auto add for pure Lightsworns. Next card is Twilight Cloth. This is the only other new card. Trap card. Target one face-up monster you control. Banish any number of Lightsworn monsters from your graveyard. If you do, that monster gains 200 attack and defense for each monster banished until the end of the turn. If this is sent from the deck to the graveyard by a Lightsworn monster effect, you can activate this effect. This turn, Lightsworn monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. So, Lightsworns don't run their own combat tricks, so this is the first of that regard. But it's less useful if your deck has emphasis on synchro plays more than main deck monsters. So, what I mean by that is that effect where you banish it, it only protects Lightsworns from being destroyed by battle or card effects. Your synchro monster, besides Michael, won't count. The combat track buff does work for those synchro monsters though, so it's a little better. It's a little flexible if you can use it. Now, it has to be sent from the deck to the graveyard by a Lightsworn monster, so Charge of the Light Brigade and Solar Recharge don't count. So that's important to count against Twilight Cloth. Makes it a little more situational than it should be. What this does do is it banishes a lot of Lightsworn monsters from the graveyard. This, along with March of the Dark Brigade, are mass banish cards, and they could lead to Punishment Dragon being played. And Punishment Dragon could be a Shizu's replacement when the nerfs go live, because it does the same thing. It sends everything from the graveyard to the deck. It's basically the No Mortal Can Resist, but different. So all the graveyards are cleared, and there is some Lightsworn graveyard disposal setup that you need first, but like if it's milled, it could be a substitute for Bacon Saver. You could protect your monsters from getting destroyed. It's a definite card for Twilight Sworn if that leads the way thanks to these new cards. It's a little iffy for the current Lightsworn decks. It doesn't work with Charge of Light Brigade and also Solar Recharge. So, yeah. It's also unusable if you're just using the Lightsworn engine. So, overall, this is less likely to see play, but it does do this mass banish thing that could be useful for Punishment Dragon. Also, a dual skill called Happily Ever After. They say can be used if you control exactly one maiden in love that you're the original owner of, and one monster that your opponent is the original owner of. Equip one happy marriage from your deck to maiden in love, and wed the two monsters. This could only be used once per duel. It's not clear what this does, because wed the monsters is kind of like a funny, non-descriptive description. What it does is it's probably the best thing for Maiden in Love. It does tutor out that equip, which makes it easier. I am a fan of this clever wordplay that they use. I think the first one was with what's that girl's name? The DSOD girl, but the one who banishes everything. But that one was like send those cards to another realm. This is the same thing as say wed them. I don't know what that means, if they hit each other, if they combine attack. Not really sure if it steals it, that you equip it to it. That would make a lot of sense for wedding them. Or you steal it. I don't know, but in any case, this is probably the best move for Blair Flannigan. This is her best character skill. Make sure you farm this event. You get those 3 cards. I'm already pretty much guaranteed myself 3 of each card, as I am a Lightsworn player, so happy to get these new toys for those Chaos decks. Now, there's a third new card this week from Duel Quest, and this is one that we actually get all 3 copies of, which is kind of rare for Duel Quest. Usually they give you some old cards to finish out, like there were some like old level up cards or whatever. This is 3 of a new card. Decoy Dragon, level 2, Fire Dragon, 300, 200. If this is targeted for an attack, target 1 level 7 or higher dragon monster in your graveyard, special summon it. If you do, change the attack to it, and perform damage calculation. This is a very similar card to some cards in the meta, like the Magician Girls and Maiden with Eyes of Blue. So decks that run Armadities can just hit over this just fine, and anything can, effect destroy this or banish it without being a problem, without having the effect going off. This is just for attacks. This probably won't see any meta play, but it is a fire monster, which makes me wonder, given Element Saber Malo was just nerfed, could invoked dragons be a thing? This does have a little bit of stall potential. Let's say your opponent just hits things. They might just hesitate and wait around. So there might be something to this. I would say less likely. A lot of dragons just don't have any synergy. This could put it all together. You could just run any dragon. It's in the graveyard though, so maybe there's some deck disposal involved with it as well. So we don't know. I don't see us seeing play, but maybe there is something. All the deck builders can get at it. So now we're going to talk. This is pretty unique here. Normally we just have Doug's casual deck of the week, but we're going to talk about 3 different decks. I'm going to talk for 2 of them, and Doug's going to talk about 1. The first deck isn't even mine. It comes from the L Games. I have the privilege of talking about the L Games' deck. This is the Legend of Silence deck. So I was struggling. I was really pissed off on Twitter, yelling at certain things, and he sent me this deck as a deck idea. He made a whole video about it, though. There's a lot of production quality in it. His own brand. He's kind of like the guy in the UK who makes videos. So check out his. I have the link right there, so you can check it out. He spent a lot of time on it, not only playing the deck, but making the videos. Check it out, and subscribe to him on YouTube. But this deck is the Legend of Silence deck, he calls it, and it makes use of a newly acquired skill, Majestic Light. That was just from our last 5D's Chronicles event. And this, he loves Silent Swordsman, so I knew it had something to do with it. And looking at the deck list, there's a ton of card draw in this deck. And what it does is it makes the Silent Swordsman immune thanks to the trap card, the Monarchs Awaken. So what it does is Majestic Light is that skill you use with Jack Atlas or Yusei, where you send the card back, and then you could special summon Majestic Dragon from the deck. So right there, that's a float right there. Normally that would just be for, that was designed to summon the Synchro monster, but this lets you tribute it for a Silent Swordsman. Use Silent Sword Slash to tribute that monster into your level 5, and then your level 5 you equip with you make it stronger with the trap card, the Monarchs Awaken. There's a ton of card draw in this deck, so there's 2 of this tuner, Guard Dragon, Justica. Can't see it too well. Yeah, that's what's called Guard Dragon Justica, Cards of Consonance, 3 copies of that, 3 copies of Dark World Dealings, 3 copies of Into the Void. So yeah, 1 Silent Swordsman level 5, 3 copies of Majestic Dragon, 3 of that tuner, 3 Cards of Consonance, 3 Dark World Dealing, 3 Into the Void, 2 Silent Sword Slash, because that's semi-limited, and then 2 Monarchs Awaken. I don't give it justice just by describing the deck, but it basically makes a 3800 untargetable. Pretty dope. So check out L Games' video in the link below, see how it works. And subscribe to him. Let's move on to the guy who does a deck for this week, this podcast every week. Doug's Casual Deck of the Week. And this is a special one too. Dino Lightsworns. Everyone loves playing dinosaurs, so this combines the Lightsworn engine with it. And Miscellaneousaurus, which was, I think it was from the Fortress of Gears box. It may have been the chase card for Fortress of Gears. I'm not even sure if it was Fortress of Gears. Memory's starting to slip. But it puts the deck together for dinosaur decks. We've seen invoked dinosaurs. This is Lightsworn dinosaurs. To power up Tyranno Infinity, there's like some banished thing that goes on. Tyranno Infinity gains 1,000 for every banished dinosaur. Lightsworns help populate the graveyard. You throw in some normal cards and Survival's End. Got a pretty cool deck here. So here's Doug Dimmaduel's Dino Lightsworn deck.
Hey there, this is Doug Dimmaduel with Doug's Casual Deck of the Week. This week I'm coming to you with a very mad lad type of deck. This is Mixture of Lightsworns. Of course, we all love our Lightsworns, our little easy-to-play level 7 Synchros. But I'm going to mix it up a little bit this time with dinosaurs. So running the skilled Dinosaur Kingdom, either with Rex, Raptor, or the other dude there. So, just run that Dinosaur Kingdom. You'll start with the field spell that gives your dinosaurs plus 300 attack and defense. So what all is in the deck? Well, I like to run my normal monsters, my 3 times Megalo Smasher X, the 2000 beat stick, level 4, and then my level 4 Sabersaurus, level 4 normal, 1900 attack. So the reason why I like to run these suckers is because I like to run my 3 copies of Survival's End. You destroy as many normal monsters on the field as possible, and if you do, special summon level 4 or lower dinosaur monsters from your deck up to the number destroyed, but destroy them during the end phase. You could banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 dinosaur-type monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls and destroy them. So this pairs well with your baby Ceratosaurus. I run 1 copy of it in my deck. You can run 2. It just depends on how much consistency you'd rather have. I'd rather fish this out of my deck than have it in my hand, because baby Ceratosaurus, if it's destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, you special summon 1 level 4 or lower dinosaur-type monster from your deck. So without having it being destroyed at the end of the turn, which is why baby Ceratosaurus is so crucial. That way you could get your Miscellaneousaurus on, or you could get your Tyranno Infinity, and that's the one thing I run in this deck. Really, the boss monster is your Tyranno Infinity. It's a rare level 4 question mark attack, 0 defense. The original attack of this card is the number of your banished dinosaur type monsters multiplied by 1,000. So how do you get this guy to be super powerful? Well, you run your Miscellaneousaurus. I only have 2 copies of it, so 2 copies is all I'm putting in the deck, but this is the busted card. I'm pretty sure in the TCG it was semi-limited or limited at one point. But during either player's main phase, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. During this main phase, dinosaur-type monsters you control are unaffected by your opponent's activated effects. You can banish any number of dinosaur-type monsters from your graveyard, including this card, special summon 1 dinosaur-type monster from your deck with a level equal to the number of monsters banished to activate this effect, but destroy it during the end phase. So really what you want to do is, to swing for game, you're going to banish this card plus 3 other dinosaurs from your graveyard to bring out your Tyranno Infinity. So by that point, it's going to be a 4,300 attack beater because you have your Dinosaur Kingdom on the field. It's going to get over pretty much anything that comes its way. And if you're able to use a second Miscellaneousaurus later in the duel, we're talking an 8,300 attack Tyranno Infinity. That's just busted. So I'm talking about all these dinosaurs, but what's going on with the Lightsworn stuff? Well, with the goal being to get a whole bunch of dinosaurs in the graveyard to use your Miscellaneousaurus skill to get your Tyranno Infinity out there, you got to run your 3 copies of Charge of the Light Brigade. You send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard, and then add 1 level 4 or lower Lightsworn monster from your deck to your hand. So what do? We run our package with our Lumina Lightsworn Summoner, level 3. You know what this does. If there's a Lightsworn in your graveyard, you could discard 1 card, and then target 1 level 4 or lower Lightsworn monster, special summon that target, and you're going to try and go for your Raiden, Hand of the Lightsworn, level 4 tuner, 1,700 attack, 1,000 defense. So what does the extra deck look like? Because we're running the skilled Dinosaur Kingdom, this is a perfect opportunity to run a level 7 Ancient Pixie Dragon. So it's a level 7 Dragon Synchro, 1 tuner, 1 or more non-tuner, 2,100 attack. Let's see, after resolving a field spell that was activated during your turn, draw 1 card. Not really what you're going to use this for, but once per turn, you can target 1 face-up attack position monster on the field and destroy that target. There must be a face-up field spell to activate and resolve this effect. So that's awesome. And then, of course, you're going to run your typical Fortune Lady Every. You're going to run your Michael the Arc Lightsworn. You could run your copy of Samurai Destroyer. Any generic level 7 synchros. But I found a few cases where I have a level 4 dinosaur on the field, and then I have my Raiden. So you want to add 1 or 2 level 8 just generic synchro monsters. I'll run my Red Dragon Archfiend, and then a copy of Stardust Spark Dragon, because it can protect itself, 2,500 attack. So, yeah, that's kind of the whole rundown of it. It's a pretty chunky deck. It's got at least 25 cards in it. If you want to run it, you could run a 30-card variant, maybe add a Grass is Greener in it. I don't know. But the concept is there. I think there is going to be some synergy between milling archetypes like Lightsworn and dinos. Now that we have Miscellaneousaurus in the game, it just adds for more of an incentive to mill a whole bunch of dinosaurs so you could get into a Tyranno Infinity play. So I remember running something similar to this in the TCG when the Dino TCG decks came out. It's a really good play. So yeah, highly recommend giving this a shot. There are more effective ways to build a dino deck, but this one was pretty fun. So if you like Lightsworn still, if you aren't tired of it and you do like dinos, run those suckers together. See how that goes for you. I think it's a lot of fun. So anyway, that's all I got for you this week. I will see you next time. Take care.
All right, thanks, Doug. And you can check out Doug's Casual Deck of the Week every week on this podcast. Check out his Twitter account at Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Talk. Last item of the day is my King of Games profile for this month. And this was a deck that I've played before in the past, but I never really got too far with it. There was always a lack of success related to how the deck was built. So the context for this month is I just felt like playing Duel Links. This doesn't happen a lot where I just feel like playing ranked duels. That's why it usually keeps me down. I don't get enough games in to hit King of Games every month. What it is the meta has been rough for a little bit. I was in Legend without a real meta deck. I don't buy cards wisely. I don't spend money in this game too much. And I've been playing different decks in that past week. Lightsworns, Fortune Lady, 6 Sams, and Synchro Toolbox. I was playing 2 versions of Synchro Toolbox, actually. And I was never able to push past Legend 3, stuck in Legend 1 often. And the biggest obstacle, I think, I was really frustrated that month. Maybe other factors in life also adding to it. But Dark Magician was the deck that I hated the most, really. I was trying to think of ways to counter that deck and looking up. That's why I was playing 6 Sams, really, to try to counter Dark Magician before they could get their cards out. But it didn't really work out. So I did play, Synchro Toolbox, as I mentioned. I played a new version with Phantom King Hydride and Psychic Tracker and things like that, but didn't really work out. So I was looking, I spent a lot of time on Duel Links meta just to look at decks to get ideas of what to play. And I saw a Synchro Toolbox deck by Turok, and I noticed this is pretty much a perfect deck, except I don't have 2 of the cards. I just made a budget replacement to the 2 cards. Took this deck to Legend 1 to King of Games in 1 day. It just destroyed the meta. I could tell, really, when I was getting my win streaks in, and it was just so consistent, and you could tell just by winning. When you're winning, you feel good, and you notice it. When you lose, I just don't feel like playing anymore. So that's what kept me going. Just constant winning got me to King of Games. So, let's talk about the deck. So Synchro Toolbox. What I mean by Toolbox, there's 1 card each that serves a purpose. So that's what the extra deck is for. Of course, that's the last part of this discussion. But the deck is Akiza, What Grows in the Graveyard. With What Grows in the Graveyard, you're kind of limiting yourself to what synchro monsters you can play. Here we're focusing on lower level monsters, level 5 and level 6 synchro monsters specifically. And this Synchro Toolbox is a very broad archetype. It's not really an archetype, it's a broad description. You could play it different ways as long as you have a menu of synchro options to play. But this is the main skill that you could use for easy synchro summoning, because you could play a monster and get Dark Verger out from the graveyard and synchro summon, because Dark Verger is not tuner, but it's a material. So the problem with playing this deck, of course, is there were some games you just lost. Smart invoked players, if they open up with Alistair, would just use your Dark Verger banish your Dark Verger from the graveyard to play Magellanic, and that's the game, because you lose your Dark Verger, you lose the duel. Any counter from the graveyard. So no Mortal Can Resist was a huge bugaboo in this run. Even though I was able to get around it, for the most part, they tried to get rid of your Dark Verger. And hopefully at that point you already won the game, you already dominated the board, there's no way they could come back. So sometimes, they did get rid of your Dark Verger and it was fine, but at other times they got rid of your Dark Verger and that was it. So there's there's a threat to the graveyard that kind of got in the way of this deck, but this deck was able to get by it most of the time. Talk about the monsters in the deck. Core monsters here, Junk Synchron, 2 copies. Junk Synchron always worked well with Akiza, making a level 5 Synchro, because she starts off with Dark Verger in the graveyard. So you just play it, and you get that monster in defense. So there's 2 level 5 Synchro monsters here, and this is the monster you play for both. Now, the main monster in this deck is Angel Trumpeter, and you need 3 copies of this card. It's a vanilla, level 4, plant, normal, tuner, 1900 attack, 1600 defense. This is a very important card in the deck. It's a plant, so a plant would summon Dark Verger. That's the whole goal of Dark Verger. It comes out of the graveyard when there's a plant. It's a tuner, so a level 4 tuner and a level 2, that makes level 6. So most, the other 4 monsters in the extra deck are level 6 monsters. So these 2 cards, this card works very well with Dark Verger. The last thing about this card is it's a normal monster, and a normal monster has synergy with a card in this deck called Painful Decision. So with that, you're able to extend the number of openers in your deck. And also, this card is a 1900 attacker, which is decent for a level 4. Just solid when you need a monster, even if you're not making a synchro play. So, the difference between these 2 monsters, Junk Synchron and Dark Verger, Junk Synchron will summon Dark Verger in defense, but Angel Trumpeter will summon it in attack. So sometimes they hit you with a floodgate, and you have no response. The Dark Verger will be left in attack, and you'll be vulnerable. So that's one downside of Angel Trumpeter, but you let it go. Last monster of this deck is my tech choice, Chaos Hunter. The other guy, Turok, he ran 2 copies of Artifact Lancia, and I felt Chaos Hunter was the closest budget substitute. It's a card you get from the trader. Artifact Lancia, you toss it, and then they can't banish for the rest of the turn. Chaos Hunter, when they special summon, you discard a card and special summon it from your hand. Then your opponent can't banish as long as this card's on the field. I felt this was the main counter to Dark Magician, because Dark Magic Circle has a little bit of a delay when they activate Magician's Navigation, and then you could do something in between and stop that banish. And that's what Chaos Hunter does. It comes off the board from your hand, 2500 attack, which competes with Dark Magician equally, and then they can't even banish. Of course, this card requires a discard cost. It's not like this deck runs card advantage, so typically you're going to have to toss something useful, but you pick the most useless card that you have at the time because it seems useful. I mean, this is worth it most of the time. And even though it worked well against Dark Magician, it also worked against Kite Roids and Super Heavy Samurai Fists. And Shiranoi's Spirit Master. A lot of meta cards, this card straight up countered. So if you don't have Artifact Lancia, this card works just as well. Sometimes better. Other cards in the deck. 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. This deck can get 1-turn kills sometimes, so you need something to clear the back row. And this was important against the Shizu, because you tried to lose life points in conjunction with her, so she wouldn't activate No Mortal Can Resist. There were chains on Cosmic Cyclones, where you just lost 2,000 life points on purpose. That's how ridiculous it was. 2 copies of Forbidden Lance. So this card's sneaky useful. Let's say you play your Junk Synchron or Angel Trumpeteer. They're going to try to counter you with back row. You play this from the hand and you're safe. You can make your Synchro summon. So that's what the main use of this card is. There is the debuff 800 attack. I barely use that. What I did use this for a lot was to negate a spell. And what I mean is, let's say they want to use Luna Light Fusion. They want to use Cyber Dragon Fusion card. I don't remember what it's called. They want to use Cyber Load Fusion. They want to use Eye of Timaeus. You would just play this card on their monster, and then they waste that fusion spell or that spell. So this is also a very important hidden use of this card. So with quick plays, you have to know whether to keep it in your hand or on the board. Against the enemy's monsters, that's definitely on the board. So think about what deck you're playing and how you're going to use Forbidden Lance. It's a pretty good card. 3 copies of Battle Tuned, quick play spell that removes a tuner from your graveyard, and then your monster gains that attack forever. With the 2 tuners being 1900 and 1300, you get those boosts. Part of the 1-turn kill component of this deck, sometimes you could just get a monster and battle tune it and you win. Armadides will be 3800, which is pretty good for that card too. So there you go. A pro tip with this card, Battle Tuned, is always play it first when you have multiple back row, because for me, I play the card I want to protect like second or third, but I'm always willing to put the card that I'm willing to sacrifice first, because it seems like your opponent always targets that card first for destruction or banish. And when they do, you flip over Battle Tuned, you boost your monster, and then you let it get destroyed. So who cares, right? So always play Battle Tuned first when you're setting it. Now, Painful Decision, I mentioned this card. You send a level 4 or lower normal monster from the deck to the graveyard, then you add the same card from your hand. So this adds the number of extenders. You've got 3 Angel Trumpeters, 2 of this card, and 2 Junk Synchro, and that's 7 openers for your deck. Pretty good. And then, let's say you already use Painful Decision, you have an extra one, you could use it as a cost for some other card later. You could use it for Chaos Hunter as well. So this works very well with Angel Trumpeter. Finally, the last card in the main deck is 3 copies of Void Trap Hole. This is the meta tech card right now. Only trap card in this deck. Pretty solid against anything that's not Vanilla, Blue Eyes, or Dark Magician. Let's talk about this toolbox itself. 6 Synchro monsters. The first one, the main monster in this deck, is Archfiend's Call, which is the Summoned Skull. And as anyone knows, this card has the ability where it can't be targeted by effects. That's why you play this card. So it gets around many removal effects, weakening effects. Pretty much unstoppable when you put Battle Tuned on it, so then it becomes 4400 attack. When you're going first, so Toolbox deck, you definitely want to go second. But let's say you have to go, you're forced to play first. You put this guy on the board. This is your leadoff guy. And when it's apparent your opponent is set on hitting your back row, like they set back row that targets you, you play this card because you know this won't get targeted. Let's say you're playing Shiranui and you know they have a Ballista squad, you would play this card. It's not immune to certain cards though. Floodgate doesn't target. Cybernetic Overflow, which is like a main meta trap card, is non-targeting. Black Rose Dragon doesn't. Fortune Lady Avery doesn't. So you have to know what decks you're playing against and what it does. Dark Magic Circle targets, so it won't hit this card either. So it's another card to consider against a lot of meta decks, really. They just target, so it's good. Shiranui Spirit Master does. Crimson Fox does. Next card is Bryonic Dragon with the Ice Barrier. This is probably the best level 6 Synchro monster in Duel Links, so if you do include level 6s, you should have this card. This is part of the 1-turn kill component. Let's say your opponent sets a card and that's it, or sets a card one back row. You banish that back row, get this guy out, bounce them, battle tuned, you win the game. Sometimes if it's just one monster, you do that. You go for your Brionic play. They could have a hand trap, but you just go for it. Go for that one turn kill when you have it. Next card is Yugioh Guardian. Turok didn't have a Yugioh Guardian. He put in the Gaia monster. Yugioh Guardian's an upgrade over the Gaia monster at any point. 200 more attack with an ability. This requires an Earth tuner, so this doesn't come out with Junk Synchron. It's dark. So this only works with your Angel Trumpeter. When it destroys the monsters by battle, you could steal it, basically, in defense mode. Why would you use this card? This is to prevent some kind of graveyard recurrence from happening. Let's say you're playing against Blue Eyes. They set in White Stone of Ancients or whatever. You know that they're going to use it to get Blue Eyes the next turn and kill you. So you just destroy it with Yugioh Guardian, you steal it, you prevent it from happening. So, yeah. This card isn't great because it doesn't have any protection. You do have Forbidden Lance to help this card, so if you're unsure about attacking, you make sure you protect this card. But there are some times where I just let it go. Like, I just took the chance, hit through some back row, just to steal that monster. And certain decks too, like Super Heavy Samurais too, that's another good deck that you would want to steal their monsters. Shiranui, you want to steal their monsters, prevent them from going to the graveyard to Synchro in the graveyard. So there's certain decks you need to know when to play Yugioh Guardian. Naturia Barkion. This is also a monster that needs Earth tuners and Earth non-tuners. The Dark version is Earth anyways. But you would play this card as kind of a closer. It negates graveyard, trap effects. So, let's say you have your other Synchro monster on the board. They only have one back row. You play Barkion, unless they're playing Econ or something. But you should be able to negate that trap card. 2,500 attack. It's pretty much a closer. Keep it around to negate a trap card you know is a trap card. Level 5 monsters. Armades, pretty good card. It sees play now because there's cards like Maiden with Eyes of Blue you can't attack, Barry Magician Girl, things like that. Yeah. Solid against hand traps, graveyard traps. I think it hits through Sirkribos, things like that. This is your go-to level 5 Synchro summon. Let's say you're going first and you need some initiative on the board, you would just play this Junk Synchron into Armades. You're generally fine hitting into back row with this card. Like, it just... generally things will be okay. Last card of the toolbox, the card I used the least, was Crystron Amatrix. And this card is more of a catch-up card. It's a Crystron monster, but it has generic requirements. More of a catch-up card. Let's say they have a bunch of big monsters on the board. You want to flip them into defense mode. This is what you do. Kind of like a windstorm on a monster. I use this card very little because when you're typically behind, you're not going to win anymore. That's just a rule of thumb. So, not a card I use too much when I was winning. So yeah, that's the whole Synchro Toolbox deck. Very proud of this deck, even though I copied most of it. Some of these cards are hard to get, like Barkion and Yugioh Guardian are cards from the selection box that I just got lucky with. I got from the last selection box volume 3, so got lucky in getting those cards. Yeah, that's the end of that discussion and the podcast. Upcoming news, Evolved Tasselberry, 2 new cards, and also Gear Golem, the Moving Fortress. This has caused some uproar if there's 3 copies of Gear Golem, the Moving Fortress, some annoying direct attack deck is coming. Dark Signer Rex Goodwin to the gate. Obtain a Legendary Duelist, Raid Duel Buster Gindle, Duelist Challenges, and Tour Guides Mission Bingo. So that wraps up this huge episode of the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully it covered everything you needed to know of what's going on in Duel Links. There's a million things going on. We're taking it to the next level. Listen and subscribe to this podcast anywhere you get your podcast. Just search the Duel Assessment and you'll find it. Check out the podcast and more at the website, theduelassessment.wordpress.com. Email me if anything, theduelassessment@gmail.com, or you can find me on Twitter, duel_assessment, my own account, Green Ranger CCG. Alright, so that's it for Duel Links this week. I'll see you next time.